You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, today we revisit a Facebook Live interview with Hannah Capon from Canine Arthritis Management. Now Hannah is one of our many lecturers. Now the last time I checked, I counted we had over 100 lecturers that have shared their knowledge on our platform. Wow. What I love about that is that we're really getting such a wide base of knowledge because everyone has something different to teach and share. And at Online Pet Health, we really embrace knowledge from the whole multidisciplinary team. So Hannah has some great webinars, and the two of my most favorite ones are how you can monitor pain when they can't tell you, and a simple guide to common medications used to treat osteoarthritis. These are two amazingly thorough webinars. Online Pet Health members, you can get the access to these on the Online Pet Health platform. Non-members, we are just about to update our free webinars on the free platform, and one of them is the simple guide to common medications used to treat osteoarthritis. So if you're not a free member of Online Pet Health, you can go to www.onlinepethealth.com/free. I'll repeat that, www.onlinepethealth.com/free, and sign up. You might be able to catch the previous webinar, and in a week or two, we'll be updating to Hannah's lecture on common medications. Now, in this interview, Hannah joins Anae Lloyd from Online Pet Health, and they're chatting about canine osteoarthritis. They discuss some of the changes in how osteoarthritis is managed over the last few years, new advances in treatment, and the resources that Canine Arthritis Management has available. If you haven't checked their website out, you must go there. We'll put the link to that in the description. Hannah also shares the most surprising things about people's responses to the diagnosis and the areas we often overlook as we treat this degenerative condition. So without further ado, over to Hannah and Anae.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live with Hannah Capon from CAM. Welcome, Hannah.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Oh, it's really great to have you. Yeah, welcome everyone. We are live with Hannah Capon from CAM, and we're going to be chatting about canine osteoarthritis. And we have quite a few people live with us already, so that's fantastic. It's really great to see you guys with us. And most of you already know Hannah, so too much of an introduction, but Hannah, I'd love it if you introduced yourself and told us a little bit about what you do and also about Canine Arthritis Management, CAM.
Yeah. Hey everybody, it's lovely to be here. So I'm a vet. I've been a vet for nearly 20 years, and I made a terrible mistake about 5-6 years ago and wrote a website. Since then, my life has gone wrong. I was working in practice, and I was just really aware this disease didn't get the attention that it needed. And I chose to do some extra study. So I went and started my rehab journey by doing a course called Garland myotherapy. I knew the lady. I was really interested in beginning to dip my toe, but I wasn't in a position that I could completely swamp myself in a new degree or anything like that. So I just wanted to find a little bit more about, adding complementary therapies into a very allopathic approach. And I was floored. I was absolutely floored at what I learned. And I really was surprised that I hadn't been introduced to it earlier in my vet life and in my vet degree. So then the guilt hit, I think a huge wave of all of those dogs that I have been completely oblivious to being in pain in front of me. So I felt very driven to do something about it. And I set up a little mobile service. So I was employed at this point, and I'd gone to my boss and said, I'm learning all this stuff and I really want to do it at work. And they were like, well, we can give you 20 minutes. I was like, that's not going to cut it at all. So I started doing a mobile service where I was going to people's homes in the evenings and the weekends, and I started off doing it for free because I didn't really know what I was trying to offer, what I was trying to provide for people. And during that point, I started becoming obsessed about the environment and the huge impact that was obviously having on these dogs with disabilities. And no one could see it. So I was just like, this is crazy. Your dog's just fallen down the stairs and you're not worried about this. Okay, fine. So that then really triggered this wish to understand how we could get across to the public that dogs don't yelp and limp, but they can still be in pain. So that was one aspect. Another one was to try and give that free resource to people. And it's really strange. If it isn't blinking and shiny and it doesn't come in pill format, quite often people go, oh, it's just not important. So when you give free advice about house adjustments, they're like, yeah, right, that's really not going to make any difference, is it? So then I started kind of working out how I could present that to the public, and a Facebook page grew. If you go back to the beginning of CAM Facebook, you'll be horrified, because it's basically a vet doing through the keyhole. They're going into people's homes, taking photos of these people's homes and going, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. You should think about changing this. And it grew really quickly. It was just like, what's happening? And then I thought, okay, I'll write a website. So I used to get up at like 2 o'clock in the morning to write it before going to work. And it went on for months, about 6 months of hell. And I eventually kind of launched it. And I was waiting for everybody to go, well done, Hannah. Well done. Whoop, whoop. Nothing. And I was like, what is that? So then it kind of like snowballed from there, that you realize that just because you create something doesn't mean that people are going to necessarily find it, use it, understand it. So for the last few years, I've been working really, really hard to try and get the vet sector to kind of get on board with the multimodal OA approach. And we've just got fingers and pies. We've got YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We do articles, downloads, resources, practice training, public training, booklets, shop, you name it. But it's beginning to take off now. I'd say it's been very slow. It's been hard. That's a bit of a
that sounds great. I think the things that stand out to me is that you only started CAM 5 or 6 years ago. I thought it was older than that, actually. I feel like in my mind, it's like a established mainstay. It's always been there, like CAM, you know?
No,
so that's quite interesting.
It started in 2016, but I think it's gone really slow. I'm like crawling up the mountain going, come on, when's this going to work?
Okay. So that's very interesting. And then the other thing that stood out for me is that you started treating animals for free. And that's something many of us can relate to and can understand. Like, we just want to make a difference. But like you said, it's kind of when you give something for free, people don't see the value of it. And that's the problem, is that when we don't put value on something, then people don't put value on it. And then it doesn't have the impact that it needs to have. Megan says, it is working. CAM is working. So, so Hannah, you're doing really, really great. I love that in that, you won the Chris Lawrence Vet of the Year award in 2019. Yes. Reminder, that happened. Congratulations. And in that little video, they say something like, when someone dedicates their working life to something, it doesn't go unnoticed. And that is really, that really struck me. Like, even if you feel that what you're doing isn't working and it's not reaching people and people are not seeing it, it hasn't gone unnoticed. And we do see you, and you are doing a fantastic job. So well done, Hannah.
Thank you. I think a biggest tip to anybody that's now kind of starting to look how to put out their service, put out their message, get the world to listen to them. You really have to have a lot of patience, and you've got to be really ridiculously stubborn and driven, because the knockbacks are many. And the simplest knockback is people just not responding. And you put out an amazing post, you spent ages writing an article, and you get hardly any acknowledgement. And you've got to remember that these algorithms and this social media and the web is really a challenge. And so if you are starting out going, this is really hard work, totally feel you. Just stick with it.
I think that's really good advice, is at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing that impacts our algorithm and our reach and how all of it works is our consistency. If you just stick with it and just remain consistent, you're gonna get there. So just keep going. Don't stop.
Yes, it really is, and that's a really good word, consistent. Try and have a consistent message that just stays, because when people bounce around, people go, well, what are you up to? I don't know if I trust you. I don't seem to have a game plan. So be consistent.
And part of that is also like having a niche, and Meg chats about that all the time. But I mean, for you, it's arthritis. For others of us, it's something else. So when you're trying to reach everyone, you're going to reach no one, right? So really know what your message is and who you're trying to reach, and then stick with that. Yeah.
And then stick with it, definitely.
Yeah. I love that this is kind of where we've started with the conversation, because one of the things that I wanted to put in your minds before we actually start chatting about arthritis, for all of you guys who are live with us, and for those of you who are watching the recording, for quite some time now, there's been a social media awareness campaign around Not One More Vet. And you know what you've said, Hannah, now about realizing everything that you'd missed in your patients in the past, and then that feeling of guilt and having to do something about it. I think that's something that not only us, many of us struggle with that as vet rehabbers, but in the veterinary profession, I think it's much more, much more relevant and profound, because you have such a short space of time. Your job is high pressure, and so I want to put it out there that for those of us who are struggling on an emotional level as professionals or as people, whether we're vet rehabbers or vets, I want to ask you guys to be brave and put your hands up and let us know, because I want to know if we're struggling, and what are the things that we're doing that's not working, and how can we change that. And I also want to talk about how we can support the vets that are in our circle. So even if we're not vets, we have vets on our team. We have referring vets. We have vets that we work with every day. So what can we do to help them, to make their lives better, to make them feel appreciated and special? And so without going on too much of a tangent, let's chat about arthritis, and we can come back to this at the end. So over the years of running CAM, Hannah, what is the question that you get asked most often, that comes up most often for you?
Why?
Why?
Why are you doing this? Yeah, it depends who I'm talking to. So I think right at the beginning, there was a very kind of why from the vet profession, because it isn't a sensible business model. It doesn't make any sense to anybody. Why would you do this? Because it's all for free. Where's your return? So that was a big one. And then from the public, it's very much supplements, which I want to stab myself in the face most of the time, because it drives me a little bit nuts that we're so fixated on what we can give orally, and we're completely oblivious to everything else that we do. And the contradiction of, I don't really want to spend any money at the vets. I don't want, they just cost so much money, but I'm happy to go and spend $80 a month on something I don't know whether it works or not. Yeah. But my dog's fat and I've got laminate floor and I don't exercise it or take any advice from anybody else. I'm so focused on a supplement, and drives me crazy. There you go. Okay, so supplements would be the big one from owners. That's very interesting. Supplements are so expensive, you're right. And I mean, I have an arthritis of my own lying here next to me. And yeah, I mean, trying to maintain him on supplements continuously is really difficult, because it's really pricey, versus what I can do for free, what I can just incorporate into our lives every day. Okay, that's a good one for us to think about. Really, what are the free things we can do? Yeah, and I think we really should all be cognizant that they're very different to medication. They're not regulated. they don't have the same pressures placed upon them, and they're allowed to market really heavily. Whereas medications, none of those things apply to medications. They can't market themselves heavily to the public sector. They are heavily regulated, and they have to prove whether they work or not. So it's a really different experience for the public. They don't know about medications. It's all hidden. It's behind closed doors. The curtain's dropped. What's going on? Oh, suspicious. But then you've got all these supplements going, I can change your life. And you're like, you can see why it is really hard for people to step away from the supplements, the be all and end all. But I just wish that people would open their minds to all the other ways that we can manage this disease.
Leilani Alvarez did a lecture for us on choosing nutraceuticals, choosing supplements, and it was fantastic because really she said that, number one, we need to hold our supplements to the same standards that we hold pharmaceuticals, medications, right? They need to be tested, they need to be regulated, they need to have safety and efficacy studies behind them. And from that, we choose, like from the supplements that are available, we choose the ones that we are going to support, and those are the ones that we advise our clients to use. So if you guys want to know more about supplements, there is that webinar in the members portal. Fantastic. So, and then what do you guys have, Hannah, for supplements?
So we don't actually support any particular brand because we're evidence-based. So there's very few brands out there that actually have a scientific strong backing. The only one that we can confidently support is Hill's JD, because they've got really good quality data that supports that diet does actually benefit mobility, pain, etc. There's definitely groups. So the undernatured type 2 collagen, avocado, soybean, unsappative fireballs, boswellia's in there, the omega-3s. So mostly omega-3s, but there's a lot of others. There's elk velvet, there's PEA, there's loads. But the problem is the owners focus so down on that they forget to get the weight off the dog. They forget to put a rug down. They don't lift the dog in and out of the car, and you see they're going, But can I tell you a story about supplements? I just tell you this story because it's so good. It's like soap opera on online pet health. So somebody texted me and said, I didn't know you support supplements. I went, I don't. And they were like, well, your face is on a supplement product. I was like, what? So we went and checked it out. And this supplement was putting pictures of vets and saying vet approved underneath their names on their website. And you couldn't get hold of there's no contact details at all. You could only purchase. And so we were like, right, you bastards. So we went online and we were like chasing them down, and we found out who the company was. And then we looked at a load of their ads and found out the first person to like every post was the same. So then we're like, this is interesting. So then we followed him, and it turned out his Facebook profile was open. So we could find out exactly who he was. And he was a bodybuilder who had a bodybuilding supplement company. And his posts were always saying, this is the UK's #1 best joint supplement for dogs, clinically proven, all this stuff. So we're like, right. So then we went to company's house and looked up his company, and his bodybuilding one had lasted 2 years and then folded. And basically he just rebranded himself to start marketing to dogs because that's where the money is. What? See? That's why I get really, really annoyed, because there's so much junk out there. There you go.
But that's exactly why I think that that you as a you individual person, wherever you are in the world, you need to do the research on the supplements that are available, right? Because it's a local thing. What you have available locally is different from it. Wherever else in the world, there are definitely supplements that have good backing, and then you find the companies that you trust and you work with them, because then you can give your owners the option of use this, stop wasting your money. If you want to use something, then use this. Don't use other things. And that's I don't know. That's the best that we can do, right? If they're going to use them, then we should help them use what's the best that they can find in our area.
I totally agree. Find companies that have got good structure. They've been around for a while. They're reputable. They contribute to clinical trials, and choose them, because your owners go on their iPad late at night and they just buy anything that sounds good because they're desperate, they're vulnerable, they want to be the best dog.
Okay, so I think that we've kind of already touched on my next question, which is what do you think is the number one thing that we overlook in managing arthritis? So let's go.
Right. So I think the top's got to be weight. It's a massive problem, and I would suggest that when I go out dog walking, at least 2/3 of the dogs that I see are carrying too much weight. It's just normal now. And that really fits in with the figures that get released, say, from the Bamfield, where it's like 68% of dogs are overweight, 37% of juvenile dogs are overweight. Weight carriage in your younger years is going to significantly impact osteoarthritis development, progression, and severity. So, we really need to focus on weight control in young, healthy dogs all the way through to dogs that are in our care. And then definitely environmental. I have got such a bee in my bonnet, and it's partly because I spent years going into people's homes and watching the way that dogs were trying to navigate around obstacle-full houses. You know, the flooring, the steps, the way that one room drops down into another, and the dog's proprioception's gone, their vision, their balance is gone, and that is a big stumbling block that happens like 10 times a day, jarring through their body 10 times a day. No wonder we don't see the improvement that we wish to. And if you're introducing a rehab plan or a pharmaceutical, you basically are setting it up to not do as well as it could do by not addressing the environment and weight. So, and the other one, exercise. I tell people to reduce the amount of their exercise more often than telling them to increase it. We have people that love their dogs and they just don't want to let go of the bond. That's their relationship. That's what they do. That's the walk that they do. That's the circuit that they do. And you're like, but the dog can't cope with that anymore. Oh, right. So we need to also be really addressing that. And they're all free. They're free. It's amazing.
They're free. Maybe we should make them not free, and then people will do them, right?
It's tricky, isn't it? It's really tricky. So I've been doing loads of free consults recently because of lockdown. And you're right, it's really hard to get people to engage in stuff that takes time. So the reason that supplements and medication is very well received is it's very efficient with time. And they get a very quick buzz of, I'm satisfied, I've done what I needed to do. I've popped the pill, I've done what I need to do. So getting people to actually invest time, energy, thoughts in every single day of their life into doing that is really tough.
Okay. What surprises you about osteoarthritis still today, and how people respond to it and manage it?
I'm still surprised that people tell me it's boring. All you people say it's boring. You're gone. It's an incredible disease. It's nuts. You know, it's so complex, and there's so much to learn about it and how we can influence it. So yeah, that absolutely blows my marbles. That does, when vets are like, "Oh, arthritis is so boring." I'm like, no. It's a really fascinating disease, and you can have amazing results with it. So what was the question again?
What surprises you about OA and how people respond to it and manage it? I love that people think it's boring. Yeah, I mean, the more you learn about it, the more you're like, oh my gosh, this is a rabbit hole.
It is. So there's I'm a standard vet, you know, there's nothing hugely special about me. And I was sitting there thinking, right, I've got an average size brain for an average vet. I'm going to choose one disease, just one. You know, really think about what we have to do at work. I'm going to choose one disease, and I'm going to become really good at it. And I'm like, it's really hard. So,
you chose something easy like arthritis, right?
Yeah. No, how naive was I? But with owners, I think always the thing that stands out is when you're picking up on signs really young, and they have they were not aware at all that this was even possible in their 2-year-old dog, their 18-month dog. They're like, this is not possible. My dog's perfect. It's so young. So that's always a really big surprise for people, that it's actually a disease of the younger dog.
I agree with you. We have a comment here saying you are not average, Hannah Capon. So don't think about yourself like that.
You have not. You know, when you talk to really amazing people. So I was on the phone to Mike Farrell the other day. Seriously, this guy's brain is insane. And if you want to go to an awesome website, which is really, really good for your owners, is called vetlessons.com. And it's really good about all the surgeries. So it gives them advice about breed predispositions, pre-op care, post-op care. It's fantastic. So vetlessons.com. So I was on the phone to him, and you know when you're just going, I'm swimming and sinking. I have no idea what you're saying.
Yes.
That's me regularly.
I feel like that always when we speak to Dr. Kenneth. He's our, like always, I'm like, I know what you're speaking about. Yeah, I know that pathway. What textbooks?
I know.
No, he's brilliant.
It's amazing. Like, I get to meet all these really cool people, but you just sit there going, oh no.
Oh goodness. Okay, good. Okay, so let's jump back onto CAM. Essentially, your CAM is about providing resources and information and education. So what are some of the great resources that you have that we should really know about? Because, you know, like you said, we might not actually know what you guys have. And what would you say is probably the most useful and important of those resources?
Okay, so we're actually rebuilding our website at the moment, which is so exciting. The CAM followers have pulled together, and through donations, we've raised £10,000 to do a complete rebuild, which is going to be the nuts. So that's a big project. So with the website at the moment, I think something that people really overlook is the It's My Home 2 tool, which is a real passion of mine. So I have to tell you the story because it's such a good story. It was around about 2017, I think around about then, that I had that light bulb moment of I'm more of an occupational therapist than I am a vet now. An occupational therapist for dogs. And so I did a kind of slightly humorous post on CAM Facebook saying, is anybody on here an occupational therapist? Would you like to help me create a tool so that we can start really addressing the dangers in the home where the dog spends most of their life? And 3 ladies stepped forward, and a veterinary physio, occupational therapist, stroke. And so they're all from around the world. There were a couple in New Zealand, there was a couple in England. And between them, over about 3 weeks, they met behind the scenes. They didn't know each other, talking about all the tools that they used in their training and in their everyday work. And they chose what's called the Home Fast tool. And then we put out posts onto Facebook asking people what are the most prevalent obstacles in people's homes. And we managed to select out 17 obstacles. And we basically rebuilt the Home Fast tool, but for dogs. You know, it's a massive undertaking, and it's really clever. It's really sensible. It shows global teamwork with multiple skill bases brought together. It's for free. It's on the website. Go use it.
Oh, great!
PDF. It's so easy. Digital or PDF, easy.
I like it. I'm going to go do it now for my home and my dog when we're done and see what I'm missing. Yeah.
And what we've definitely found, it's human nature that people often believe stuff that's in print. They believe something that someone has taken the time to actually formulate. If it's well branded, if it's consistent, it imposes trust. So quite often, if you were to, in passing, say, oh, just put a rug down, the owner will just like, won't even remember that.
Yeah.
But if you actually give them something that's kind of solid, tangible, you know, they're going to go, okay, this must be important then.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, if you think about our initial consults can often be so information filled, it can be overwhelming for our owners. So giving them something like that they can take home and think about and spend time on helps to solidify the importance, like you've said, and it also helps them remember and maybe adds a little bit more value to what we're trying to tell them to do. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it called? What is it called?
It's called It's My Home Too.
It's My Home Too. Okay. It's My Home Too. That's the number one to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If you guys are already using that, let me know. We'd love to know if you're already using it or if you're going to be using it now. Post that comment. And then just to remind you guys, this is your opportunity to ask Hannah anything. I don't see any comments coming in, any big questions. So come on, guys.
Well, there's another tool. I can think of another one. There's another one on the website. We've got about another 5 coming, but we're becoming more and more kind of ambitious in what we create. So the lifestyle tool is there as well. And what's really great about it is it spins. So you can pick a different aspect of that dog's life, from sleeping to out walking to eating. You pick an activity which is part of that dog's everyday life. The wheel spins and it gives you warnings about things that you should be aware of and advice to counter those warnings. So, for example, sleeping, make sure that the bed is comfortable, make sure it's easy access, don't fill it with rugs and toys, make sure it's in a draft-free area, all these sorts of things. So the owner can just go through their dog's daily life and just break it down into digestible chunks. And if anybody wants to know what mooching means, because there's a section called mooching, and that's when you're just mooching around the house. Everybody knows about mooching, but I've had a couple of people from other countries going, what are you talking about? Yeah, so mooching is just moving around the house.
Okay, I like it. I think that's really cool because it also makes you think about what your dog is doing every day, which we might not always think about.
Exactly, and you break it down into chunks that people can target a bit at a time, whereas, as you say, information overload is such a big problem with what we do.
Okay, so we have a question from Rebecca Sartain. I'm going to see if I can show this on the screen. Do you know how much the new treatment from the US Librela, it targets nerve growth factors?
Yeah, so it's only just been released over in the UK for about a few weeks now. It's really interesting because Holly's Army, which is one of our community, it's our community group for owners, it's a hot topic on there at the moment. And if you really want to see how people are responding to it, then join Holly's Army and follow the feed. So they're owners that are, maybe it's a young dog and they're looking to use it as a long-term management plan. It might be a dog that's actually already on about 4 different medications and they're trying to come off these medications, replace it with Librela. So Holly's Army is becoming a really good window into looking at what owners are feeling. That this, rather than clinical data, is really important. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. But it's really interesting to see how owners are responding to it, because the non-steroidals are oral, the owner's under control, they're giving them daily. It's a completely different mindset to go to an injection once a month. You feel like some of your input, your power, your control is being taken away from you. You're now back in the hands of the vet on a monthly basis. So yeah, it's a completely different construct. So a lot of people feel it's going to be a big game changer. It's a monoclonal antibody directed at nerve growth factor. A nerve growth factor in the younger dog is totally important for neurogenesis, for nerve development. But what they found, as a dog matures, it actually becomes a inflammatory mediator kind of receptor sensitizer. So it's there making the nociceptive nerve endings in and around the joint more sensitive to the inflammatory mediators. So it's there's a monoclonal antibody directed at that nerve growth factor to reduce that peripheral sensitization. If you're reducing the peripheral sensitization, then you're going to have a knock-on effect on the central sensitization. So yes, it could be a big game changer. The price point's pretty good at the moment. Don't know whether that's just because it's just been released and vets aren't adding a consult fee. So on average in the UK, it's around about 60 quid. So it's 60 quid for 4 weeks worth of action. But they've still got to learn a lot about it. There's a lot to be learned with regards to the frequency, what drugs can co-side it. So at the moment, you can keep a dog on a non-steroidal for a 2-week overlap. So as Librela kicks in, the 2 weeks is there as the safety net. But having a non-steroidal alongside Librela for long term is not something that they're aiming for, because there was when it was originally being developed, they had a case of rapidly progressing OA noted in humans. So when monoclonal antibodies for nerve growth factor was being used in humans, they were like, oh my God, their arthritis is progressing really quickly. And a lot of those people were also on a non-steroidal at the same time. So there's a belief that those two combined on a long-term basis isn't ideal. So they're doing this 2-week overlap and then try and get off the non-steroidal. There's some people that are saying, yeah, and you really got to condition your owners to give it a go for, say, 2 or 3 injections to really give it a chance to work, which is really difficult for owners that are trying to wean off an already complex, stable pain management plan. There's a lot of people a bit worried about taking something away, replacing it with the unknown. So it's fascinating. Hope
that is very interesting. Yeah, hopefully. I mean,
we did a Facebook Live in Be Sure about Librela. There's going to be more because I've got Duncan Lascelles coming back soon. So there will be lots and lots about Librela coming up on Cam.
Okay, that's fantastic, Rebecca. I think that definitely answers your question. I think for some owners, it's nicer to not be giving them something every day and to be able to just go to the vet once a month. Like, I'm that kind of owner. I just bring you once a month, you jab him, and then he feels great. And then, you know, we carry on with feeling great for the rest of the month. That sounds promising. Rebecca says, thank you. We'll certainly look into further and check out Holly's Army as already a member. Fantastic, Rebecca.
Yeah, do check it out and learn vicariously. I learn every day by just reading people's posts. And I think you're right. There's a lot of people that will like the fact that they're going to go into their vet care on a regular basis. And we've seen that with Cytopoint, which is a jab for atopic dermatitis. And there's a lot of people that like the fact that they can go and check in. But there's a lot of people that don't like that. And they want to be more independent. So it's going to be interesting.
There's another thing that's here in South Africa, which you guys made me think of now, which is a joint injection called Aquamid, and it has a similar but different name in other places. Do you know anything about that? How's that? Arthramid, yeah?
Yeah, so Arthramid in some countries, Aquamid in others, and it's all to do with licensing, I believe. So it's a hydrogel. And it's very much there to replace like the viscosity of the joint fluid, and it seems to impregnate into the joint capsule. So when they've actually done like post-mortem studies, they found that it's got into the wall, or like the synovium into the joint capsule, and whether it helps with some flexibility, getting some more joint range of motion back. But yeah, so I've used it only a few times because I've been out of practice for the last few months, and it takes a while for it to have effect. So the dogs that I've used it on, you're looking at a good 3 weeks before people are really starting to see benefit. You can combine it if you want to use it. If it's a late stage case, you can put it with triamcinolone. But yeah, they're releasing studies. It's in a greater extent by Uppsala, who are trying to bring together the data so that we've got much more understanding about it.
Fantastic. So I don't feel like we're putting you on the spot at all, because you just have all the answers. So guys, come up with harder questions.
I'm not giving you loads of technical advice though, am I?
No, it's perfect.
I think there's a lot of choice out there now. I think that's what's really interesting. And the toolbox is getting very, very full. And it's now choosing what in the toolbox and when. So at the moment, I feel that our toolbox is like my dad's toolbox, where the hammer's on top of the spanners, on top of the screwdrivers. And, you know, you have to wade for it and go, I don't really know what I'm going to use for this job. Whereas what we really want is that tidy toolbox where the hammer's over there, the screwdriver's there, the nails are over there, and we have an understanding of a flow of how to use them.
I agree with you. I think that it can be quite overwhelming trying to find something that trying to have a plan, a multimodal plan with everything that we have available to us now, where do you start and where do you go? So I think that's a very good point.
Yeah. And I think with that also, because we're all professionals, most of us have got this academic requirement that needs to be kind of fulfilled. We tend to migrate to more complicated. Don't forget the foundational. Whilst you're choosing the complicated, that doesn't mean that you neglect the weight control, the lifestyle, the home management. You get the owner education in, you get your objective monitoring in. All of that can be taking place whilst you choose your more complex options.
So you've just answered my next question, which is
sorry.
What are the tools that you rely heavily on for treating OA? So like where do you go first? So would you add anything to that?
Yeah, well, so I'm a vet, and vets are trained pharmaceutically. So we very much, that is my allopathic mindset. And I believe in science, I believe in clinical trials, and I believe in finding the safest, most effective, quickest intervention. We're dealing with pain. So definitely I am a pharmaceutically driven, but I really, really strongly combine it with owner education, lifestyle adaptation, weight control, exercise modification. I love massage. I'm a massive proponent for massage. I just think it's so powerful on a number of levels, not just physically, but I feel emotionally for the dog and also hugely for the owner. I feel that it gives me enough time that I can be educating, conversing, empowering at the same time as treating the dog. So I think it ticks a lot of boxes for me. I'm just getting into acupuncture, that's kind of pretty damn cool too. I've got PMF. I use that, but that's in the background because it's allowing me to massage and educate. I've got lots of bits and bobs that I do, but I really try to make sure that I am educating and empowering and getting the foundations in place at the same time.
Yeah. I love that. I think you're going to love acupuncture. It's a really valuable tool. So enjoy that next step in your journey. So other than the two that we've just discussed, are there any other new and emerging treatments that we should be aware of that might be giving us greater effectiveness in our approach?
Yeah, so in the last few years, we've had the Galliprant arrive. So that's the Piprant. So you've got your wealth of non-steroidals, which are the COX-2 specifics. So your Previcox, Robenacoxib, these ones, okay? And now we've got our Piprant, which is Grapiprant, also trade name Galliprant. So that's a really big advancement in reality, because we're working a lot further down the inflammatory cascade. So we're very unlikely to have the same side effects that we do with the more widespread effect on the prostanoid inflammatory cascade. So we're more specific, yes. So that's really cool. I think I'm really excited about shockwave therapy, but for many reasons. I think it's really exciting that there's a therapy there that you could immediately use conveniently immediately post X-ray. So we've got to think about convenience for owner and for dog. What sort of things are within our grasp that we can use promptly, safely, generally? So Shockwave's able to be affecting different tissue types, not just OA, lumbosacral disease, tendinopathies, myofascial trigger points. So, and that dog's already under sedation. It's a perfect opportunity to send them home with the treatment. So I think this is a really exciting area for treatment and convenience. The intra-articulars is getting all very juicy and exciting there. That's a war, blimey. So many people doing intra-articular. So you've got your stem cells, your PRPs, and there's a lot of products coming out there. I think the difficulty for that sector is that when you've got dogs that have got multi-limb lameness, they've got multiple issues, the expense is quite high. Where do you start? How much is too much? And it is kind of like daunting for owners. It feels invasive. It feels a bit intimidating. And there's a really big price point that comes with them as well. But I think that's a really exciting developing field there too. So loads going on. Loads.
Awesome. I love it. So if there are no other questions from you guys, I mentioned in the beginning that I just want to take a moment for us to think about our mental health, ours, and the vets that we're working with, and perhaps not only them, as we're working within a multidisciplinary team. There are other professionals on our team. We are all struggling with mental health issues. There's a global pandemic. Many of us have lost our work. We've lost patients. Some of us are drowning in patients. We've gone from very enough patients to more than we can handle. There are many of us that have, many people that have had that conversation with us as well. So if you're struggling, I don't want to say we're all struggling, but we are all struggling. You are not alone in that. So I think there are two things that I want us to talk about. One, how can we support each other? How can we lift each other up, make the other members of our team feel appreciated, valued, loved, like they are, what they are. How can we make them feel like what they are, which is valuable, treasured members of a team making a difference in the lives of animals every single day. We're changing lives every day. So Hannah, do you have anything? What can you add to that? How can we help the people in our team feel valued?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's actually kind of clarifying what the team is, and the team isn't just the people that are in your building. They're the people that you work with for the best of that dog. So when you look at the dog, that's people surrounding that dog, and that might be even the dog walker, that might be the dog groomer, that is certainly the owner. Then you've got your vet care team, you've got your rehab team. There's so much in that multidisciplinary team. But from a vet perspective, being a little bit selfish, just talking about vets at the moment, there is a real problem with vet bashing, and it's got to stop, because it is causing so many problems in our industry with people that are doing the best that they can, for multiple species, multiple diseases, high stress, huge workload. And then they're getting negative press. And a lot of these people are actually on a very moderate wage. We no longer are an industry where people own practices. We work for big corporates. So taking out your upset at the price of treatments at the vet in front of you is really not on, because that's not them that are dictating the prices. So I think from a vet perspective, just trying to have really good communication, being patient regarding their workload, trying to present yourself professionally, politely, write your reports, as I say, be patient about replies from vets. That would be really, really decent. And also, if you hear your owners doing some vet bashing, don't jump on board it, okay? Do kind of like promote that profession, because they're suffering. They really are.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's so important that we do whatever we can in our power to uplift and encourage the veterinary profession, because it is a challenging profession to step into. It's a challenging profession to be in. I in the beginning of my career, spent a little bit of time in veterinary practices, and I walked away from it saying, thank you, Lord, that I'm not a vet, that I didn't go down that path. And how many vets go down that path and only realize what the lifestyle is once they're there. So yeah, I think supporting them through great communication, through patience and through kindness, and just being empathetic and understanding of where they are as well as professionals is so important. Important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a real take home is, once you detect that element of vet bashing or vet professional bashing or professional bashing, step away. And that might be that let's be honest, if you've got a competitor in the local area, it's lovely to hear when people prefer your service to theirs, but acknowledge it and leave it at that. And don't promote any kind of bad press about anybody. It really just isn't on.
I absolutely agree with you, and we've spoken about that actually quite a bit, in that it's about unity. And when we uplift even our competitors, a rising tide lifts up all ships, right? We need to be supporting and uplifting each other. We all have a place. We can all work together. So it's not about who's better than who. It's about what is best for this patient in front of us. And if that's someone else, then that's what it is. So yeah, fantastic. So Hannah, the other aspect is, so once we've thought about how we can support the vets on our team, in our circle, we also need to think about what we can do for ourselves. So something that is quite important for me is spending time doing something that makes me happy. Something that, like, I like to say that I need to hit my reset button. And when I'm doing that thing, it's like I have like a whole body reset, and then I come out myself again. So is there something that you do that makes you happy and that just hits that reset button for you?
Yeah. So I'm really a bit of a sea baby. I just love being in the sea. And at the moment, stand-up paddleboarding with the dog is just my thing. So if anybody follows me, that's the only thing you'll see on my Facebook at the moment is paddling with the dog. But I actually, it sounds awful, and people are gonna run a mile. I love going feral. I love going in my camper van, disappearing off grid, cup of coffee, avocado sandwich in a camper van in the middle of nowhere. Totally great.
I agree with you. If there's been trauma or loss or something, I want to just disappear. So just wherever I can go and just no contact, just disappear. So I definitely agree with you. And I love the stand-up paddling. I love your photos on Facebook. I do follow you.
Oh, she's amazing.
For me, it's training my horses. So I love being out in the arena with them. And I don't necessarily ride much, but I do a lot of in-hand work from the ground, and it just resets me. So what do you guys do that resets you, makes you feel like a human being, functional, emotionally stable, I don't know, happy? What do you guys do? I'd love to hear from you. And that's what I have, guys. That's it from me. Hannah, is there anything else from you?
No, it's a lovely community. I think everybody needs to be grateful for what we've got. We've got a fantastic community. I think my biggest offering, because I'm suffering it myself, is overload. I'm just overloaded, and every time I feel that I'm beginning to feel competent in something, I suddenly feel completely incompetent in everything else I do. Like, my brain is one thing in, 10 things out, and I'm beginning to have to teach myself that is how it is, and not be angry and upset with myself. So most days I'm like, deep breath, this is how it is, learn to live with it. You're never going to be great at everything, just accept it, just be passionate about what you do, and the rest will come.
I agree with you. I like that. I have the same problem, and I often get flack from my family because I forget things that are like general knowledge things. And I'm like, there's no space in my brain. I don't need to know that. I need to know these things. Yes. So I think that's that's perfect. There's a reason why specialists are generally the first to refer, right? Because if it's not in their specialty, then they're hands off.
Absolutely. And if you speak to any specialist, they're actually very humble and say, I couldn't cope with all the information. I chose just one thing, and I'm very specific about what I know. And I think with a job such as a rehab role, we dabble into lots of different specialisms, and you can end up feeling really incompetent because you're not at their level. It's not possible to be at all these people's levels. So just be passionate, be conscious, be kind, and make sure that you behave professionally.
Beautiful. Let's leave it at that. Thank you so much, guys, everyone, for joining us. If you guys have comments or questions, we'll get back to them in the comments if you're watching the recording. So have a wonderful day, everyone.
See you later, guys.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. And please, if you get a moment, head over to Stitcher or iTunes and leave me a review. It's a really lonely job being a podcaster, and so the only time I get to hear from you or know that you're out there is when I get a review. And know that I read every single one of your reviews. So to those of you that have left reviews, I want to say a very, very big thank you. Every time we get a review, it really helps to get the veterinary rehabilitation podcast out there to all the vet rehabbers all over the world. All right, vet rehabbers, so if you are looking for more continuing education in the field of veterinary rehabilitation, head over to onlinepethouth.com. Go be awesome, guys.